Hi guys, my name is Troy, this is Nala, and today we are talking about the ball python. Let's get into it. The ball python is the most common pet snake, and for various reasons. They are very docile, very chilled when you handle them, they are very shy, they hardly bite, and you can just sit next to them and watch TV and they're just gonna act like they're watching TV with you. However, one downside is that they are very delicate. But let's start with where they come from. They come from West and Central Africa. They do live in grasslands, forests, and near agricultural areas, and although they can be found very often buried underground, they are considered to be semi-arboreal because yes, they are great climbers and they can be found climbing trees when the land is too wet. And if you have one in your enclosure and you have branches, you know that they are gonna climb those branches. Let's start with the enclosure size. A juvenile ball python can easily live a few months in a 20 to 30 liters tank, then you move it to a 3 feet enclosure, but ultimately an adult ball python needs a minimum of a 4 by 2 by 2. They usually grow up to be between 3.5 feet and 4.5 feet or 5 feet depending on the sex. The females are larger than male, and a 4 by 2 by 2 is the minimum. Now, if you are thinking that a juvenile ball python can live right away in a 3 feet enclosure, you are not wrong. However, they love hiding. They spend most of their time hiding. They are really shy. So if you're gonna do anything like that, make sure you have plenty of hiding spots for them to feel secure because stress is a major thing for them. They can easily go in food strike, and we're gonna talk about that later, and one of the causes is that because they don't feel secure enough. In terms of setup, you will need at least two hides, one on the warm side, one on the cooler side, a water bowl, branches and fake plants, and it feels like there is never enough. I definitely need more branches into my enclosure because overnight I can hear my snake going around. She gets really active at night. I'm sure she will benefit from having a more like hanging spots, more branches, more fake plants. But with ball python, it's 100% sure you are gonna have fun setting up their enclosure and changing it around from time to time because they will benefit their enrichment. They can benefit from having a humidity box, which is basically an extra hide. It's just in a real box with a hole for them to come in and out, and inside there is very often sphagnum moss, and it's very often placed not on the warm side but nearby the warm side because it's very humid inside, but this gives them the chance to regulate their humidity levels if you are not sure about keeping the overall humidity level on point at all time. And talking about humidity, of course, substrate is really important. I use bark chips for my wine. Sometimes I mix it with coir block. Just make sure if you do that, you let the coir block dry a little bit. Otherwise, the substrate will be too wet and you may run into scale rot, which is a problem you really don't want to run into. Other than that, you need to know that ball pythons are delicate because they are very sensitive to temperature and humidity change. So the humidity levels should be between 40 and 60% at all time, rising between 70 and 80% during shedding cycles. So when your ball python is entering blue phase, make sure you spray extra water inside the enclosure on top of checking that the humidity is at the usual level. And of course, another factor that can really affect your ball python's health is temperature's level. They need a warm side between 31 and 30 degrees and a cooler side between 24 and 26 degrees. And if you can give them a basking spot around 31 and 32 degrees, that's even better. My one has a lot of space into the enclosure, it needs more enrichment, she's probably gonna get a basking spot at some point. Now to reach those temperature levels, please do use a heat lamp plugged into a thermostat. I have recommended heat mats before in my channel, however, if you don't know how to use them, they can be really dangerous for your snake. You can run into burning, that's another bad problem you really don't want to run into. So please do use heat lamps. They don't necessarily need a UVB light, but they can benefit from it, especially if you have a female that you are trying to breed. It's gonna help with the calcium, and she's gonna produce much healthier eggs. Other than that, make sure the cooler side doesn't get actually cold. 24 to 26 degrees, it's usually room temperature, but if for some reason your room is really cold, you may want to find solutions for the cooler sides too. May this be another heat lamp with a much lower regulation on the thermostat, or a heat mat usually outside the enclosure so that your snake doesn't run into burning. Remember, humidity and temperature levels, alongside with stress from not having enough hides with ball pythons, are actually crucial. When you hear about food strike in ball pythons, the majority of the cases it's because one of these three things is a bit messed up. In nature, ball pythons they eat small mammals such as rats, mice, and birds. You will very often feed your ball python frozen rats. When they are juvenile, they need a meal every 7 to 10 days, and when they are adult, you will need to space it up every 10 to 15 days. Mine, if it's too cold outside, every 20 days is good for her. If I give her food before 20 days in a cold season, although her temperature is always right in the enclosure, she is gonna refuse it. I told you they are very sensitive to temperature and humidity change, and although they live in captivity in a perfect setting, they can still feel that the weather outside is not good. When it comes to handle a ball python, you are in for some real cuteness. They look like curious babies at all time. Eyes that look like always wide open, always wandering around, studying their surroundings. However, they're not really active, they usually tend to be shy, as I said before, so if you see them on your lap while watching TV, they're probably just gonna sit on your lap and watch TV with you, although they are not gonna be understanding the movie that you're watching. They are not dogs, they are not cats, they won't be coming to you when you call them by their names, they are just very comfortable being around you, especially if you start handling them since they are juvenile. And in captivity, they live between 15 and 30 years. So I think that's something you may want to consider if you're gonna get one. There you have it, guys. This was your ball python scare guide. And as always, if is there anything I've missed, please let me know in the comments below. And let me know how your snakes are doing. I hope you are doing well, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!